Welcome back, everyone, to the Moms Like Me podcast, powered by Support Now. I'm super pumped about our guest today. I'm joined today by Brenda Mara, who is a customer of Support Now in the sense that she is raising funds for her beautiful daughter to get a dog, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I thought in my conversation with Brenda previously, I thought, she really exemplifies so many of the qualities that I love in moms. The moms that don't give up, the moms that don't take no for an answer, and the moms that really see the challenges that they face as just opportunities, not just to help their own, but to help the broader community. So Brenda, thank you so much for being here today with me. I appreciate it.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course.
So, yes, I'm Brenda, and I have a almost 6-year-old daughter named Renna. Her birthday will be on Leap Day, so she'll be 6 on February 29th, and she was born with a rare genetic disorder called Pitt-Hopkins syndrome. And so a lot of things go along with that, but the main things that we see with her specifically are some developmental delays, struggles with gross motor skills, fine motor skills, and communication. Communication's a huge thing. And she just started walking at 4.5. So like a year and a half ago, she started walking independently, which is super exciting. But now 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 she won't stop walking, and, I guess I could just hope the same for the words too, if they come, that I can look back and say, "Now she won't stop talking," but we don't
A-
know. We don't know if
And
she'll.
Brenda, when did you find out about Rena's diagnosis?
Yeah, so it was exactly when she was 2.5. So she was born a week before the world shut down. So, and she's my only child, so I just thought it was delays because of isolation, because of the pandemic. I didn't know that a 18-month-old should be sitting up by herself, should be
Yeah.
able to roll over.
Yeah.
And, looking back, I'm like, should have known that. But I didn't. And so at her 18-month checkup, her pediatrician said, I think that we should see a specialist. So we saw a physiatrist who diagnosed her with hypotonia, so low tone. And then she thought Rena would be progressing at a really good rate, but she didn't. So she wasn't progressing. We started PT, we started early intervention with all the things, PT, OT, speech. She had a special instructor, and everything was so slow.
Mhm.
So the specialist said, I think we should do genetic testing. So she was about 2 probably. So we got genetic testing done, and it came back way faster than we thought. We were like expecting it to be December of, I think, 22. And they let us know the end of August that she had a rare genetic disorder called Pitt-Hopkins. And I didn't even look it up because I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know what the internet says about this. And I started seeking connection with other families. There's a Facebook group, a private Facebook group where we can share questions, things that we're excited about, really share anything. And that's a community of people that get it, that understand what we're going through. So I just dug right into that. I introduced myself. I started connecting with other moms outside of that group. And that really helped me a ton because I didn't want to focus on like what was wrong with Rena. I wanted to know, how can we help Rena? How
Yeah.
can we help her walk? How can we help her better communicate? So that's kind of the timeline of things and where my mind was at.
Yeah, and I really love that. You get this news, and instead of just the doomsday scrolling on Google, and I guess ChatGPT wasn't yet a thing, you said it's like, I'm not gonna look it up because I'm not gonna allow myself to really believe that all of these things are going to be her reality, even if she might be, certainly vulnerable to a lot of those things. Instead, I'm just gonna focus on what I can control, which I think is such sound advice because, as I always say, moms trust moms.
Yeah.
So you found your people really early, and it sounds like, and this is what I want to learn, how cathartic it was to be able to share openly about how she was progressing and struggles that you might have had as well, just as the mom now trying to care for your daughter in a way that you never thought you would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting because when she was in all those therapies and she wasn't progressing, I just thought she was delayed still. And then when we did get that diagnosis, I did get upset because I'm like, wow, there's actually something going on and I can't fix it. So you're right. I did say, okay, like, what can I do? And that's when I just started connecting. And something that was so helpful to me was I searched not only in that group, but I went on Instagram and I started just searching Pitt Hopkins. And I connected with a mom. So we're in Pennsylvania and this mom is in Texas. And I connected with her and we would leave each other voice messages back and forth. But her son, I think he's 7 or 8. So he was older than Rena and he was just starting to walk. So I don't know, it might have been like 5.5, 6, somewhere around there. And I saw these videos of him taking these independent steps, and the parents were so excited. And it gave me hope to see that this child with Pitt Hopkins, that was very similar to Rena, was walking. And so I really started sharing her story on Instagram. She actually has her own Instagram page, Rena's Corner. And it's helped other people the same way this family has helped me. But it also has helped me because, you'll make a reel and I'm going back and I'm watching the video. And for example, I didn't post this yet, but yesterday, Rena was on her trampoline, like a little kid trampoline, and there's one of those bars. And previously, she could never hold on to the bar. So I'm recording us. She's holding on to the bar, and I'm bouncing her. And I said, and then I'd stop because it's exhausting. I said to her, "Do you want more?" And she takes her hands off and she says, "More." So I bounce her more. And she was not only holding, but she was responding. And because I was recording it to utilize and share, I could see these things. Instead of being like, she's almost 6 and she can't even jump yet. She can't even bounce on the trampoline. Like she's been in bounce houses since she was, you know, instead of thinking that way, I've learned through these experiences to look at what she can do. And a lot of times, this is, that's just a small example, but I love hiking and biking. We're not going to be mountain biking down a mountain. Like we're not going to do that together. But there are adaptive bikes and she's learning how to use a little trike right now that's an adaptive bike with
Yeah, so
hiking.
it will look a little different, is your point. It's
Exactly.
it's not that we can't, it just will look different, and not
Yes.
to take away from her life experience because of the diagnosis, but rather how to find ways to integrate her, albeit, a little bit more challenging, certainly a little bit more expensive. But I do, Brenda, I wanna go back to something you said because I think this is a really one of the most challenging things that I think all moms struggle with is comparison. The phrase like comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Did you ever struggle with the comparison? You sound, when you talk to me, you sound so upbeat and so optimistic and so like frankly like assured that like I've got this and this is okay and I've got her. But I'm curious, like what has your effectively like your grief journey looked like along the way?
Yeah. So I can think of specific examples. I did definitely struggle with it because I ended up quitting my job when she was 18 months old. And, you know, I joke that Rena Incorporated is my employer. But so I'd be able to bring Rena to different things at the library or meet up with a friend somewhere. And yeah, she would be laying on the floor when kids are up doing the parachute thing. And the more that I put myself in these uncomfortable situations, the easier it got. But it was upsetting. I was comparing. I felt anxious. Like I remember always like sweating because I was so anxious that, oh, she's going to get stepped on. Oh, people are going to think like she's an annoyance because she's like crawling in the center of this big parachute thing and the kids are walking around. At the library, they were doing story time with the Little Mermaid and she's crawling on Ariel. And I'm thinking in my head, should I stop her? Should I stop her? Should I stop her? She's being really disruptive. What do I do? And just getting into those situations more and talking to other moms. Like I love connecting with other moms that have kids with disabilities or, something going on. But talking to them really helped me too. That same mom in Texas, I was sharing with her how Rena keeps screaming in restaurants. And it's not like a bad scream. She's not
Mhm.
misbehaving. But because of her struggles with communication, she screams a lot. And I said, "How do you deal with that?" And she said, "My son has a right to be here just like any other kid. And if the people around us don't like it, they'll move." Wouldn't you know? Like a week or so later, we're at a restaurant and I see people move. And I'm like, she's right. So instead of me thinking like, oh no, we really are being disruptive. Look, these people are moving. I was like, wait a second. They didn't like it. They can decide to move. She has a right to be here too. So it was a lot of just talking to other moms that were a little further along on a similar journey and
Did
really putting myself in those uncomfortable
Quick
places.
question. Did you ever feel comfortable, when she was younger, when you're at these birthday parties, when she's with quote unquote, able-bodied folks or able-bodied children? Did you ever feel comfortable reaching out or like talking about it with some of those moms? Or did you feel like, I don't know that they'll understand? Like, how did you? It definitely sounds like you found your tribe. And I think that when moms might sense that their child may be a little bit more different than some other children, they feel like they can't talk to those moms because they're living a completely different parenting journey. So I'm just curious, like, did you engage with them or did you just decide, you know what, I'm gonna find my people over here?
I think that it took me a little bit to engage with these other parents, but once I started to, they would say something like, "She is so cute." Like, I was watching her and I was so impressed with
Yeah.
how she, I don't know, like, pulled up to stand in that water bucket that was coming down on her in the splash pad or whatever, I don't know. Or we would be at a event where there was a food truck and I'd be in line with somebody and we'd start talking and they were a PT or an OT or whatever. But I think initially in my head, I was kind of like projecting what I thought other people were thinking about me and my child.
Mm.
And then when I actually had a conversation, it was never what I thought they were thinking. It was almost always positive. And I would say the only time that it was negative, like they just didn't know. They just
Yeah, they
didn't
just didn't
know
know.
any better.
Yeah, it's like ignorance. They just weren't aware.
Exactly. Yeah.
Part of why I asked that question is I think that even in mom groups that I find myself in sometimes is we're all so nervous and so afraid to be vulnerable. So, someone might sense, Rena may not be, at the same speed as some of my child or another child, but they're almost like afraid to like check in with the mom because they don't know if they're gonna offend or if they're gonna say something out of turn. And so I just think it's an important conversation to have about like kind of bridging that gap because sometimes the divide between the disability world and the non-disability world is just that the moms aren't talking to each other. We're not being open about how we're feeling and what they're seeing. And so it sounds like you had at least a community that once you opened up, they embraced you and embraced her. And sometimes that's all you want is for someone to see your child for the cuteness that she is and not for whatever condition or disability they might have.
Mhm.
And it,
Definitely.
it really like I think like sometimes those things like bring people together even more because people want the best for her.
Mhm.
So I was just curious to learn a little bit more about the comparison side. I also wanted to lean back into something that you said, which I think is true, in the sense of they may not know. I think sometimes as moms, we tell ourselves that everyone's judging us, when in reality, like we're all so in our own stuff. We're all so in the throes of our own issues, whatever they may be, that we don't have the bandwidth to think or judge because everyone's dealing with stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that it's so easy as moms, especially when they're young, to like build up this narrative in your mind that everyone's talking about us. Like, No one's talking about you because they're
No,
you're dealing with their own stuff.
right?
They're dealing with
I
their
know.
own.
Yep, I've been asked before, like, "Don't you care?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have the energy to care." Like, I
Yeah,
don't anymore.
exactly,
Sort of freeing in
exactly.
a way.
So Renna is amazing. So you talked about how she started walking at 4, which is incredible. So incredible. What was that moment like for you?
So, we were actually at a place called Longwood Gardens, which is this huge outdoor, I don't even know, like, beautiful landscaped park, not really, but anyway.
Mhm.
So, we're there and I'm waiting for my dad, and she wanted to get out of her medical stroller, so I had her standing there, and she was holding on to it. And all of a sudden, she lets go, and there is a crowd of people. We're, like, in the lobby where people are pouring in, and I'm walking backwards with my arms out, and I was like, "She's king." I'm like, "Watch out." I'm, like, clearing a path for her to go through, and then it was so amazing because my dad saw it, and then the
Mm.
following day, I was at the park with my mom and Rena, and she, like, pulled a stand on something and started just walking away from it, and I was like, "Mom, did you see her?" And it was just amazing because we had seen her take some steps, but it was always provoked. It was always
Right.
in, like, therapy, or I would put her up against the wall and I'd entice her to come and she'd take, like, 2 steps, but she took, like, 20 steps.
Yeah.
So, it was very exciting, and it still took a really long time for her to get to the point where she could walk for more than, like, 20 steps, but it was very exciting, and it definitely gave me even more hope for her future because it showed me that something that I was doubting she would ever be able to do. Like, at 2.5, she couldn't even stand more than literally a
Mm.
second, that I was like, there's no way she's gonna walk." But she did, and so I'm like, "Alright, what else is she gonna surprise us with?"
Yeah. It's like such a moment where all of that work, all of that therapy, all of the money, all of the things that you've
Mhm.
done helped get her to that moment. And I'm sure it is so exciting to think about what else she can accomplish just with time and just with attention. And I mean, that had to be so gratifying for her to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
because
don't
it's
think she'd stop.
independence, walking and the ability to walk away. I mean, that is truly like one of the most like independent things you can do. It really shows that you're capable.
Mhm.
So I absolutely love that for her. So I want to go back to some of these groups that you're in terms of, finding your village, finding your tribe. For something like the diagnosis she has, most people don't know what it is. So it seems like one of the big pieces of advice you have for parents that has a more rare or maybe not even rare, but a little less prominent of a diagnosis that the world knows about is to look on the internet and to find those niche communities of
Mhm.
people that understand what this diagnosis is. Other than Facebook groups, where do you find these families and like how do you build community?
There is another program, I'm not a part of it, and I feel horrible because I can't even remember what it's called, but there are programs out there where you can connect with other families who've kinda, like, signed up to say, "Hey, I'm open to people reaching out if they have the same diagnosis for their child or something similar." And so that's a great way. I feel like just getting out and living life too.
Yeah.
Like, you just run into people. I plugged into the Autism Society. We're actually right in between 2 different counties. So obviously we live in one, but we're right next to the other. So I plugged into both of these. And that was
Yeah.
even before she had that secondary autism diagnosis, because I was like, "All right, I need something where she can play and she's not getting run over. Like, I need a safe place for her." So I just started plugging into that. There's different organizations, like, and some of these are regional, but there's one called Casey Cares. And so we signed up to be with Casey Cares, and Casey Cares will give us the opportunity to go to different events. Like, we saw Disney on Ice. We went
Oh,
to
that's
some
great.
dinosaur exhibit, which I did not think that she would like that, and I bet that was a favorite of all the things we've done with Casey Cares. She loved it. She loved it. But no, like, really connecting with other people to tell you about these things. Like, I have gone to a bunch of different like vendor events, and I literally walked through and talked to everyone. And I found out about all these different things. There's like an organization called Variety out of Philadelphia, and they do different things too. Like one thing they did was Six Flags. So we were at Six Flags in, I think it was November, so really just talking to others. And I feel like that's a huge thing because you can search all day online, but to actually connect with others. And I also love podcasts. So I listen to a lot of podcasts too. And anytime I hear something, I'll put it in a note in my phone and then I'll look it up later. So there's been a ton of things that I've taken advantage of because I've heard it on like a podcast.
I love that. Thanks for the subtle plug for moms like me too. No, but it's true. Like people search for the things that they need help with. And so finding the right podcast with moms that are maybe further along in the journey that just, again, show you not just what's possible for your kid, what's possible for you and your mental health and how you wake up every day knowing that not all days are going to be easy. You're going to take 2 steps forward and 5 steps back, and it's going to be hard. But knowing that there are people that are, again, further along in the journey, I think that's huge. Again, for all moms, but especially those that have a child with a disability where the path forward is so unclear.
Yeah.
It's so unclear.
Was. Mm.
I would love for you to tell us more about Rena's desire for a dog, where that comes from. Share more about that, because I think, again, this is just such a testament to the type of life that you're trying to give Rena, where she gets all of that joy, all of that support in all the ways. And I just love the story so much.
Yeah. So I think it all kind of came about. We have 2 Jack Russells, and she had no choice in the matter because the one's 15, the one's 11. And I was just sitting there petting the older one, and I was like, I don't know what we're going to do when you guys are gone. And I was like, I should really start thinking about what kind of dog would be good with Rena. And there were lots of things that led me down this path, but ultimately I started looking into service dogs. And there were multiple that I could just say, nope, they don't work with kids. Nope, it's just for seizure alerts. But there were 2 that I was looking at. The one was totally full. I guess the need is just growing, or people are just more aware of how service dogs can help kids with disabilities. But I reached out to Four Paws for Ability, and I went through the application process. I was also introduced to a family who is about 30 minutes away, and they had just gone through the entire process of getting a service dog, and the service dog was now home with their son.
Mm.
So I talked to her, and my main question to her was, so does having a service dog give you more work? Because I thought, well, you're going to have to like train this dog, and you're going to have to make sure that you're
Yeah.
watching
It's a whole nother responsibility. Yeah.
right? That's what I'm thinking. And she said they had never had dogs before. She said it's been the most helpful thing ever. It's alleviated a ton of stress. And it's just kind of like another, I was going to say person. It's just another being that is really kind of watching her son. And so after talking to her, going through the application, having a phone interview with Four Paws, I'm like, I'm definitely doing this. And the funny thing is, I think I talked to Advocacy Abby about Support Now and searching for grants before we were even approved for the service dog. But I'm like, all right, let's just do stuff. Let's just throw out some activity and I'll figure it out as I go along. So we didn't even know that it would be Four Paws for Ability. And we did start to fundraise on like a low key sort of beginning to the fundraising. And then once we got approved, I was like, all right,
Here
what
we
can
go.
do?
We have
Yeah.
purpose here.
Yeah.
And it's been going great from
Mm-hmm.
what I can see.
Yeah. So the service dog is not cheap because they're training these dogs for 18 months. And so we're about to send them the money for the service dog, and then the process really starts. So I don't know if the dog is already alive or not, but they basically match the dog's ability to what the child needs. So Rena's main things are like stability, safety. I'm also hoping the dog can help with some of that screaming and nonverbal communication, even providing like a social bridge because she loves people. She's like the friendliest girl, and she will walk up and just like tap and grab at people, but she's just trying to communicate.
Right.
So we're
Right.
hoping that the
Just wants
dog
to be in
can
the
help.
mix. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
can help her with some of that stuff, and just know that she's not gonna fall down the steps because there's steps around the corner that she's exploring that I didn't know about or
Right.
something. So we're very excited. It's a long process, but it will be the perfect match for Rena because of that long process.
I love it. Well, Brenda, I'm just so thrilled that you came on today. We are absolutely going to link Rena's support now in the show notes so that anyone who feels inclined to continue to support you on this journey of the dog and really anything that things will pop up, and we want to make sure that you feel as supported as possible. So I'm going to link that in the show notes. But any other piece of advice or organization that you want to shout out here to anyone listening that where this message really resonates?
Well, I guess I'll give myself a little plug. So
Please do.
yeah, Rena had inspired me to start a little side business a couple years ago called Rena's Corner. So we do have a website, but I'm revamping it. Hopefully by February, it'll be done. So it's not exactly where I want it. But because of the challenges with that website and trying to figure it all out while trying to manage a life, you know, I started a Facebook group. So it is a private Facebook group, but I think it can be searched, and it's Rena's Corner. And I've reached out to different small businesses, different companies, and asked if we could partner up and if they would be willing to offer discount. So, like, just to give you a few examples, there's a hiking carrier for bigger kids. It holds up to 150 pounds. And so it's called a freeloader. And so I connected with the owner. We had a great conversation. And now I'm able to offer a big discount for the freeloader for anyone who,
That's
like
awesome.
me, wants to go hiking, but the baby carrier doesn't fit and your child isn't walking independently, on uneven gravel. So it's been really fun because I've connected with so many people, and it's shown me that there are so many products and resources that can help our kids that I didn't even know about. So
Mhm.
me constantly like seeking out these partnerships I feel like has helped me a lot just to know that I'm doing this work that excites me, and then I'm kind of passing it along. I'm passing along product knowledge, discounts to the families. So, and then I have Rena's Corner on Instagram where I share more of how far she's come.
Yeah.
So I hope that that would give some families just some encouragement.
Yeah. Hope. Hope.
Yep, some hope.
Yeah.
Um,
And we'll link that too, Brenda, so people can follow you there. And then when the website's up, we'll make sure to connect people there. Again, I want to thank you. I think that you've got such wonderful energy about you. And when people see Rena's face, which I've seen through the internet, she's such an easy person to root for. So I'm really excited for you all. I'm really excited to see this adorable dog and really almost like complete your family in a way, at least
Mhm.
for this stretch of life. And so, Brenda, thank you again for joining us today. And I look forward to many more conversations of figuring out how we can support one another.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jordan.